So in that last lecture, we learned about Booleans and if statements. And those are pretty cool, right? Because you can say, you know, depending on this situation, if it's true, run this chunk of code. If not, do this other one. Like, you kind of get to do some decision-making things. Like, I really feel like that was the first time our code essentially was alive. Like, it was making decisions, right? It was doing cool stuff. It was like, computer, go make this decision for me, whether it's true or false, right? Like, that was pretty cool. So in this lecture, we're going to be learning about arrays. And arrays aren't going to do anything kind of magical like the if statements, but arrays are super important. And you'll find in future videos, in fact the one after this, you'll say, ah, this is a really cool way to like use arrays. Like, I'm really glad I learned this. So while we're learning about arrays, you may think these are not very cool, but I promise even in the next lecture you'll be like, ah yeah, arrays, those are pretty tight. So let's go ahead and talk about what arrays are. Arrays essentially are just a list of things, and it's essentially a list of some given type. Like, remember the types ints, strings, doubles, booleans. That's all a bunch of different types, but an array is just a list of those, and it keeps them in a certain order. So again, I think this is something, once I show you it, you'll kind of understand it and be able to move forward here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make an array, and we're going to make an array of strings. So to do this, we type the type that we want to use, so we do string here, and then we do two square brackets here, the left and the right one, and this says we're making a string array. The type here is a string array. That's the specific type that we're using. So then, just like any other variable, we're going to give it a name. I'm going to call this one dog names. Okay, and then we have to set it equal to something, and with arrays it's a little bit different than what we've been doing in the past. You say new space, and you do the same thing of whatever type it is that you created here. So I'm going to say string array, and then on the other side of this you're going to do curly brackets and then your semicolon. And you're like, holy cow, there's a lot of like nuance to this array thing. Yes, there is, but I promise it's going to make sense here for a second. So remember how I said an array is a list of things? Well, inside these curly brackets here, this is where you can make that list. So this is an array of dog names, an array of strings. So I'm going to put those inside of here. So we'll put one that's called like Fido, and each time you want to do a new thing inside of your array, you put a comma after it. Then I'm going to do one for like Sean. Let's do one for Haley. Let's do one for Bo. And we'll do one more for Jane. Okay? So here, this is an array of dog names, meaning it's got all these different things here, okay? And you still might be saying, Nick, I don't really get what this is. I see you're typing stuff, but whatever. Let's do some stuff to see if we can't figure out more of what this array is. So let's do a print, and first let's just try printing this array, this dog names array. This is a string array variable, if that's not complicated enough. So this variable dog names is a string array. So we're just gonna straight up print dog names, okay? Let's hit run, see what we get. And you can see you're like ljava.lang.string. You're like, what the heck is this about? So when you have an array, you can't just, if you say print, it's not going to print everything inside of the array. You need to actually go through each item and print them if you want to. And I'm going to show you how to do that later if you want. But for now, it's important to show you something here. So with this array dog names, it's this list, right? And it ranks these things from, this is the first thing, this is the second, this is the third, this is the fourth, and this is the fifth. So this array has 5 items inside of it, 5 strings. And if we want to access the first one, we just type the name of the array, dog names, and then do our square brackets, and then type what position it is that we want. So you would assume if you want the first one, you would just put the number 1 in here. And I guess if we do system.out.println and cut this and paste it inside of there, you know, it will say, all right, go ahead and print the first thing inside of this dog names array. So let's hit run and see what happens. You're like, okay, Fido's gonna come out here, but no, Sean comes out. And you're like, what the heck? That's the second one. Like, what happens if I hit number 2? Okay, so we're gonna put number 2 in here. And look, Haley shows up, but Haley's the third one on the list. Like, why Why is it doing this? Well, arrays, and this is true I think in almost every programming language, they are zero-based. It's using a zero-based counting system where 0 is like the first item, and then 1 is the second, 2 is the third, right? So to actually get to the first one in here, you put dog name 0, and we do this, Fido shows up. So you can kind of see how that works. Like, so if you want to get to the first item in the dog array, you want to do 0, like 1 minus the actual position you were hoping for. So if you wanted the last one in the array, you would want to put number 4. So if we put 4 in, that should show us Jane. Let's make sure that works. Yep, that shows up. But watch what happens if we try and hit 5. Okay, we're gonna go and hit run, and kersplat. We get these errors that's saying an array index out of bounds exception, meaning you tried to ask for the 5th thing in array and that doesn't exist, right? There's only, or you're asking, even though it's the 5th position, you're asking for essentially the 6th item in the array. I know, isn't that confusing? But just remember, arrays start counting with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if on this, if you try to do -1, this should also give us an array index out of bounds. Let's see if that's the case. Yep, that's gonna give us that. So I don't think you could ever actually put a -1 in an array and have it work. I think it has to be 0 or greater. Just thought I'd kind of do that for fun, but hopefully you're kind of starting to see the vision, like, okay, an array is a thing, and the important thing about arrays is they always keep this order. So arrays, like, it's very important. They do not change, okay, now Haley can be moved to here and here. No, what you set up the first time is what they are indefinitely. So to make sure you're really understanding what an array is, let's go ahead and make an array of ints. I think this will kind of help us to kind of get the flow of this. So let's say we want to make an array of ints. We're going to say int, then do this square brackets to say we want this to be an int array. That's the type. Now we have to give a name to this variable. I'm just going to call this one ages. It's just going to be an array of ages, or a list of ages, is equal to a new int array. See how I did the just like this before, and then you got to do the curly brackets and that semicolon, and now what you put in here is what goes inside of this int array. So you know, I'll put maybe like 46, some number there, 0. I mean, we could just go on here for a while. Ooh, got a space in there. And notice you don't have to have a space after these commas. I always do, just because I think it makes it easier to read. But yeah, let's go ahead and put some more in there. So anyways, this is an array of ints, right? And if we want to get to a specific one, let's go ahead and print one out. Let's say we want to print the very first one. What are we going to do? We're going to go ages, square brackets, and we want the one at the 0 position, which is essentially the first position. So let's go ahead and run this. And 46 shows up, and look, 46 is the first one in there. Just to really cement this in, I'm going to do this one more time with the type that we just learned, which is booleans, okay? So I'm going to say boolean array. We're just going to call this my bools is equal to a new boolean array. And then inside these curly brackets, get my semicolon in there, I can either put true or false, because those are the only two things that booleans can be. So maybe I'll go true, 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 and then false. Then maybe true again, and then false, false. I don't know. Like, there's the Boolean array, there's really not much you can do. Like with the string array, at least you can put in lots of things. With the Boolean one, it's just kind of like, it's either true or it's false, right? And again, let's say we want to get to the last one here. We're going to say print my bools, and we want, how many are in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 minus 1 is 6. So we put that in, hit run. We should have a false show up. And look, we have false. So something cool I want to show you with booleans, you see how we had to kind of count to the end to see how long this thing was? You can get how long an array is by just typing the name of the array, in this case my bools, and just say dot length, and this will tell you how long it is. So, and again, this is something kind of tricky, so let's do that print line thing again. and we're just going to print out the length, okay? So let's hit run on that, see what we get. And you'll notice it's 7, right? And that makes sense. Okay, this array is 7 items long, meaning it has 7 items in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So to get to the last thing in an array, it'd be kind of cool if you just think, okay, I'm going to take my bools.length and I'm going to put it in here. So whatever the length of it is, I want that to go to the last one. But what is the issue when we do this? Out of index, out of bounds exception, because remember, if you want the 7th item, you have to do 1 minus that. So to get to the last item in the array, you do whatever the length of it is minus 1. So you can kind of do this little math in here inside of the square brackets to say, whatever the length is minus 1, I know that that's the last thing inside of the array. So let's go ahead and hit run on this, see what we get. Yes, now that exception goes away and we see that we get the false, which is excellent. Okay, so we're moving pretty well through this. You're starting to get this. One thing that I want to clarify here is that when you say that you're going to make like a string array, for example, you can only add strings to that array. Like if I come here and say comma true, you know, try and throw like a boolean in there, it's not going to work out. Same thing happens if I try and put like an int in there, no good. See here, if I try and add like a string, something like that, not going to work. Something we could do is if I say this previous array up here, dog names dot length, excuse me, dot length, and look, as you're typing stuff here, on the right side it will tell you the thing that you're actually getting from doing that dot. So length actually gives us back an int. So when I say dog names dot length, this is considered an int, so I can actually put it in this array of ints. That's kind of cool, isn't it? But yeah, I don't know. I just think that's neat. So just remember, if it's an int array, only ints can go inside of there. If it's a boolean array, only booleans can go in there. All right, time for your challenge. So challenge number 1, make an array of doubles. Remember doubles that we talked about? Those are numbers that can have decimals in them. Okay, make an array of doubles. I think you should be able to handle that one. And then the second challenge here is make an array of ints and if, and then create an if statement that prints big, do a new line here, if the array is longer than 10 ints. Okay, so number 1, make an array of doubles. That shouldn't be too bad. This one's kind of intense because we're using what we used in the last lecture, but it should be fine. Make an array of ints. That's the first part. Just go ahead and make that. You shouldn't have a problem there. Then create an if statement that prints big if the array is longer than 10 ints. 10 ints, 10 items, right? So go ahead, pause this video, go work on that, and then hit play when you're done with it. Good luck. So hopefully that went well for you. This is kind of exciting for me. Like, the challenges are actually starting to be really challenging, at least I think. So it's fun for me because hopefully the gears are running in your head. I remember the first time I was learning this stuff, it was like, oh man, like I think I get it. Like, this is cool. So first things first, let's make an array of doubles. So I'm gonna say double. Did not want that. Double array, and I'm just gonna call this my percentages is going to be equal to a new double array, and the items that I'll put in there are maybe like my scores from class or something. I haven't been to school in a while, but say I got a 78 on one test, really bombed, got like a 54, at one time studied my butt off, got like a 93, woo! Seems like a good array of doubles, right? Nothing much to that one. Okay, number 2, this is the fun one. Make an array of ints. I'm just gonna do that first. Int array, I'm gonna give it a name. I'll just call it cool ints. I don't know why, I just decided to name it, you name it whatever you want, is equal to a new int array. We're gonna do our curly brackets, semicolon, let's put some ints in there. Okay, so I got some ints. Now it says create an if statement that prints big if the array is longer than 10 units. So I'm gonna do an if statement if, so and what is it checking for? If the array is longer than 10 units, so I'll say if coolints dot length is greater than 10, then I'm going to print big. That's it. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Goes and nothing. Well, that's because the length here is not more than 10, but let's go ahead and add I'm just gonna add a bunch of 5s here onto the end. This is definitely bigger than 10. What happens when I hit run now? Dun, 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 dun. It says that it's big. Okay, so like I said, arrays, maybe you haven't seen the light yet. I know if this was me and I was learning, it's like, okay, I can make arrays like you asked me to do here in the challenge, and I kind of see that I can get the length of them, but I have no idea why this would be important at all in programming. Well, in the next lecture, we're going to actually put them to use, and you'll be like, arrays, these are pretty cool. So let's go to the next lecture and figure that out.